Everyone thinks that he has got the IQ of a wet sock and the emotional depth of a puddle, but this insult turns out to be the chosen one and the most promising soldier of the Barsberg Empire. Taito Klein is born into a world full of war and violence. He goes to the Barsberg Empire's military academy, where the best students are trained to help the Empire win battles. This clueless idiot is like a broken toy, always getting smacked around by his own tragic story, and with no memories of his past. So everyone calls him a slave and treats him like shit, but luckily, Taito has a friend named Mikage, and they both are inseparable. It turns out that Taito and Mikage are among the elites of Class 315 who are chosen to defend the Hoburg Fortress. This top military class in the academy is going to attend the graduation exam and demonstrate their Zephon skills. After the class gets over, Mikage comes running to Taito asking if he is nervous for the graduation exam, but Taito smacks him in the face saying that he is not nervous at all. Mikage declares that he will clear the graduation exam, join the Imperial Army, and save his family. When he asks if Taito still doesn't recall anything about his family, he replies that he just keeps getting the same nightmares. At night before going to bed, Taito tells Mikage that before coming to the academy, he was just a battle slave without any family, but Mikage has been his best friend always. Hearing this, Mikage starts crying like a baby, saying that he is really happy that Taito opened up to him. Then he asks Taito to promise him that if they ever run into trouble on the battlefield, they will not abandon each other and they will die together. The next day, Mikage and Taito end up on the same team, and soon the graduation exam begins. The in charge of the exam tells them that they'll have to defeat the criminal and kill him before the Hulk ends up killing them. But if they are unable to kill him or abandon their teammates, then they'll fail the exam. The criminal turns out to be a huge giant who looks like a killing machine. Mikage and Taito's stupid teammate Shuri casually says that they'll crush the criminal in no time, but the criminal knocks one of his friends and asks him to stop screwing around. He says that defeating these little chickens will reduce his punishment, and then goes on to knock out the others. As the chaos unfolded in the arena, a white-haired, deadpan man named Chief Ayanami walks in looking mildly annoyed to deal with more nonsense. Around him, students were getting wrecked by the hulking criminal, but Taito and Mikage were holding their shit well, like the last two contestants in a reality show about survival. Soon the Hulk jumps towards Shuri, but Taito and Mikage block his attack and kick him in the gut. Then Taito jumps on the Hulk's arm and starts kicking him, but suddenly the Hulk starts choking Mikage. Seeing his friend in danger, Taito jumps in the air and slams a kick across the Hulk's ugly face and then captures him with his Zephon. He asks the criminal to surrender if he wishes to save his filthy ass, and the Hulk gives up. However, the in-charge appears before Taito and tells him that the exam is not over until he kills the criminal, but Taito doesn't follow his orders. Soon, Ayanami enters the arena and kills the criminal himself and mocks Taito for being a softie. At night, Mikage tells Taito that 19 people, including them, have passed the exam. When Taito asks him about the white-haired man who killed the Hulk, Mikage tells him that he is General Ayanami, a ruthless monster who has killed thousands. Then he tells Taito that tomorrow they'll finally become soldiers, and ends up sleeping with Taito. In the morning, while on his way to submit his documents, Taito hears a familiar ringing of a necklace. The sound starts controlling his body, and soon he finds himself standing in front of the room in which Ayanami and his team are discussing something. When Taito peeps inside, he sees that Ayanami is holding a necklace, saying that he needs to find the stone of the necklace, which belongs to the King of Rags, who is also known as the Eye of Michael. As soon as Taito hears the Eye of Michael, he suddenly recalls everything from the time when he was a kid. Ayanami was the one who killed Taito's father, and that the necklace actually belongs to him. Slowly, Taito's nightmares start to make sense as his mind fills with terrifying memories of his father's death when he was a child. Overwhelmed with anger, Taito leaps at Ayanami using his Zephon powers, but he's quickly overpowered and captured. Ayanami orders that Taito be thrown in jail, calling him a slave from Rags. He refuses to release him until Taito reveals everything he knows about the lost stone connected to the necklace. Meanwhile, Taito's belongings are searched, and Mikage finds out that his best friend has been imprisoned. One night, while everyone else is asleep, Mikage sneaks into the prison and finds Taito bruised and badly hurt. Seeing Mikage, Taito tells him that he plans to leave this place and won't be able to keep the promise they made to each other. Mikage, however, grabs Taito's hand and insists on escaping together. As they try to run, Ayanami's guards block their way. In a desperate move to protect Mikage, Taito grabs a knife and holds it to Mikage's neck, threatening the guards to back off if they don't want Mikage to die. He then apologizes to Mikage for having to leave him behind, but Mikage urges him to save himself and not worry about him. With no other choice, Taito leaps onto his ski ship and escapes, leaving Mikage behind. Badly hurt by Ayanami's Zephon, Taito loses control of the ski ship and passes out, causing him to fall. Instead of crashing onto the mountains below, he lands on a boy named Fra. who was out on a picnic with his two friends on their own ski ship. When Taito and Fra hit the ground with a loud crash, the other two boys rush over to check on their overly confident friend to see if he's okay. On the other hand, Chairman Miroku calls Ayanami and orders him to find Taito because the boy is too valuable to lose. The soldiers who go on to search for Taito can't enter the 7th district because it is the domain of the god, and if Taito is there, the soldiers can't arrest him. Fra and his friends have dragged an unconscious Taito to a church, hoping to wake him up. When Taito finally stirred and cracked open his eyes, the first thing he did was kick Fra in the face and attempt to leap off the balcony. Fra, with lightning-fast reflexes, grabbed Taito by the shirt midair, saying that he has never seen someone so eager to die. As Fra struggled to keep Taito from jumping, another boy stepped in, lifting Taito back up while giving Fra a piece of his mind for picking on little kids. When Taito asks why they are saving him, the guy with specs explains that this is a Barsberg church of the 7th district and the 3 boys belong to the clergy. The guy with glasses introduces himself as Castor, the boy with purple hair is Labrador, and the scary-looking one is Fra. When Fra asks if he is from the Imperial Army since he has a tattoo on his neck, Taito yells at him that he is not part of those bastards. Seeing that Taito is in bad shape, the 3 boys ask him to rest well and leave him alone. At night, Taito can't sleep because he is worried about Mikage. He walks out of the doors wondering how to reach his friend, but suddenly his weak legs give away and he collapses. He wakes up with a jolt after hearing the scream of 3 nuns who saw him lying on the ground. They introduce themselves as Sister Athena, Rosalie, and Libelle. The nuns magically lift him up, take him to his room, and start giving him princess treatment. Meanwhile, Mikage has been put in jail for helping Taito escape. Soon, Ayanami calls him for questioning and asks if he is the one who helped his friend that night. He threatens to kill his family if he tries saving Taito. The next morning, Taito wakes up fully recovered and finds himself in a familiar place with a lot of people in the church. He learns that the church helps remove the curse of Verloren that is casted by God of Death, who used to take the souls of humans in exchange of granting 3 wishes. Later, Taito heads to the library to dig deeper into the mystery of ghosts, only to end up fainting when he spots a nun with a skull for a face. Fra, our hero, swoops in once again, effortlessly catching Taito in his arms like a groom with his fainting bride. With a smug air, he seems to silently question how many times he has to save this guy. Not long after, Castor shows up, casually mentioning that he's the mastermind behind this skull-faced nun creation. The eerie nun hands a book over to Castor, but Fra wastes no time, snatches the book, grabs Taito, and bolts out of the library like he's on some undercover mission. Outside, Fra reveals that the so-called book is actually a magazine filled with scandalous photos. Before Fra can enjoy his treasure, the skull-faced doll delivers a flying kick to his head, clearly unimpressed by his taste in literature. Later, when Taito asks Castor about what happened 10 years ago, he explains that long ago there were 2 nations named Barsberg under the Eye of Raffle's divine protection, and the second was the Rags Kingdom under Michael's Eye of divine protection. The 2 nations signed a pact to maintain peace and work together. But 10 years ago, Rags broke the pact and declared war on the Barsberg Empire, and it was soon destroyed. Taito asks if this is really the truth. Fra tells him that if he doesn't believe in this version of history, then he should find the truth himself. While on his way to find more about the war, Taito comes across a huge statue, and the nun tells him that long ago the god of death, Valoran, committed the sin of escaping the heaven to the surface and caused terror among humans. But the Chief of Heaven sent 7 forces from heaven to punish Valoran, and they were known as the 7 ghosts that sealed Valoran away. The statue is of one of the 7 ghosts named Sickle, and then she takes him inside a huge hall called Domain of God, and later Bishop Labrador gives him a silver rose of protection. Soon the nun comes running to Fra and Castor, worried that they can't find Taito and he has not taken his food and medicines. Fra goes on to look for him and finds him secretly escaping the city. He catches hold of him from behind and asks what the hell is he thinking by doing this. Suddenly the gatekeeper announces that he is closing the gates and Taito starts running towards it, but Fra holds him back, lifts him like a child again, and Castor joins him too. He tells Taito that it will be a pain in the ass to see him faint again, so he should return with them if he doesn't wish to starve to death. Then Castor picks up the silver rose and puts it on Taito's hair, saying that it will not work unless he wears it all the time. Soon they take him to the dining hall where the nuns start babying him again. They take him to a table specially set for him and ask him to eat well and get his strength back. As soon as Taito lifts the lid of the pot, he almost falls off his chair when he sees eyeballs for dinner. Fra smacks his lips and happily gobbles the eyeballs away while Taito is almost on the edge of puking on Fra. The nuns tell them that they are not allowed to eat meat, so getting eyeballs for dinner is a blessing for them. Soon, Fra pokes his fork in Taito's food, saying that he can eat it if he doesn't feel like eating, but Taito quickly pops an eyefish inside his mouth, and strangely, it tastes good. Fra mocks him, saying that he is so tiny because he grew up eating only pills, vegetables, and meat, and should eat more organic stuff to grow tall. Realizing that he really is small in size, he starts gobbling all the eye fish away, and everyone looks at him flabbergasted. When the nuns ask him his name and identity, Tato falls into silence again. So the nuns quickly rid the room and ask him not to worry and enjoy his time in the church. Soon everyone starts eating their food, and Tito still keeps thinking about his best friend, Mikage. Back in the Empire, Master Miroku asks if Taito's location has been located, and the soldiers reply that they have located him, and there were indications that he has crashed in the 7th district. Then Miroku asks Ayanami why Taito escaped, and his minions reply that Taito was just a little homesick, and once he starts missing his school, he will return. But the others in the meeting accuse Ayanami for driving Taito away because he used force on him without the permission of the elders. Tito is an important candidate for the Eye of Michael, and they ask Ayanami to take responsibility for his actions. When Ayanami asks why Miroku took him under his protection, he replies that the brand of slave emblem on his body will not let him find a place to seek protection anywhere, and he would soon return. In the 7th district, Tito gets busy with the daily chores, helping the nuns who adore him so much. Sometimes he gets flashbacks of the time when he was bullied in the academy because he is a slave. One day, a bully in the academy came to him and asked him to lick bird poop off his shoes, but before Taito could react, Mikage knocked him with his fist and asked the bully to lick his boots himself like his mommy taught him to clean after yourself. After this incident, they both were locked up, and that's when Mikage and Tito became best friends, always attached to the hips. Now Tito can't just sit back and have a good time in the church, while his friend must be having a hard time under Ayanami after he helped Tito escape. He decides to leave the church, but suddenly an old man approaches him and tells him that he had a wife who was buried in the church cemetery. But when he thinks about her, he realizes that she must be lonely, so that is why he can't leave the church. Then he tells Taito that he has no one to go home to, and he no longer has a place to call home. Then he looks at Taito and says that he seems to be in a similar situation as him. Then he asks what's troubling Taito. A distressed Taito tells him that he can only remember bits and pieces of his past, and he couldn't protect his friend like he promised. The old man tells him to go to a place before the clock strikes 12 if he wishes to let go of his regrets. So Tito keeps the silver flower on his bed and Et's ready to leave, but Frau blocks his way again. When Frau asks what will a weakling like him be able to do if he returns, Tito attacks him. With his Zephon, and Castor realizes that Tito can use Zephon too. He knows that many in the Empire fight with a power known as Zephon, and Tito is one of them too. Zephon is the unique ability to transform the God-given gifts of life into many forms. In most cases, the power is activated by emotion and channeled through the hand. Soon Tito attacks Fra again, and this time they both are in the air fighting like cats and dogs. Tito keeps attacking him aggressively, but Fra keeps playing in defensive mode. Castor and Labrador are watching Tito playing along with Fra's little game, but they observe that Tito is powerful enough to let Fra toy with him. Fra keeps annoying him, and Tito keeps unleashing his Zephon on him, but none of it is able to touch Fra. He asks Tito to not act like a brat and become more powerful if he wishes to return. This angers Tito beyond limits, and he activates the maximum power of his Zephon and attacks Frau. But as the dust settles, he realizes that Frau is not even scratched, and he is standing right behind him. He tells Tito that he needs more than just Zephon to beat him, and then he punches him in the gut, causing Tito to collapse. Castor tells Frau that he went too far with the little kid, but Frau tells them that now he will not try to leave for some time. At night, Tito wakes up to another nightmare of his friend being tortured by Ayanami. He recalls the words of the old man who asked him to meet at a place before midnight, and he quickly runs to meet the man and follows him to save his friend Mikage. The oldie with the cape takes Tito to an empty hallway and asks if he is having difficulty in remembering his past, and he wishes to save his friend too. Then the oldie goes on to show him a picture of him with his father when he was a kid and asks him to think hard and remember his past. Soon Tito gets flashbacks of the time when he was a young kid and Ayanami came to his kingdom. Then he got separated from his father, forcing him to live a life of loneliness and sadness until he met Mikage. Mikage was the one who called him a true friend, promised that he would never abandon him, and even helped him escape. Then the old man asks Tito to give up his soul if he wants to get his wish granted. Soon the man starts hypnotizing Tito, forcing him to close his eyes and offer his soul to him. But as soon as Tito is about to fall in the oldie's trap, Frau and his friends butt in and yell at him to not let the man's darkness devour his heart. Then they look at the oldie and ask him to leave Tito alone. The man says that Tito came to him for salvation. Frau laughs at him and asks if his salvation has God's blessings, and the man replies that he will give Tito to his master to make him happy. But Fra doesn't want to hear the man's nonsense, so he takes out his sickle, saying that he will beat the shit out of him. Soon a brutal fight begins between Fra and the evil old man, and Tato tries to help him with Zaphon. But Fra asks him to back off because Zaphon will not work on him. Soon the oldie starts running away to escape, but Labrador throws a silver rose at him, blocking his way, and the other two trap him again. Castor says that it pains him to raise his hand against an elderly man, but he would have to return Tito's soul to him. Soon Tito screams in fear when Frau attaches him with his sickle and throws him in Labrador's lap and starts dealing with the old man himself. The man unleashes his skull-shaped monsters, but Frau quickly overpowers him, but the oldie jumps and places himself on the fountain. He declares that he will take Tito's soul away, but Frau announces that he will not let him escape. He takes out his silver threads, binds the oldie's wings with them, and jumps high in the sky with his magnificent sickle and cuts off his bony wings with it. Soon the bones crash with a loud noise and Tito comes back to his senses. When he asks what the hell happened, Castor explains that an elderly man had his soul stolen by Kor, a servant who lures humans into darkness, but thankfully they are successful in bringing his soul back. Soon the old man wakes up and Castor asks him to sleep inside as he will catch a cold. Then Labrador and Castor carry the man to take him inside the church to spend the night there. Fra picks Tito again and drags him inside the church too, and Tito yells at him to stop throwing his body over his shoulder every time. So Fra asks him to shut his trap and stop struggling. Fra throws Tito on the bed and tells him to sit still so he can remove the core mark from his chest. He raises his hand and pulls out a strange curse from Tito's body and asks him to take some rest. The next morning, Tito wakes up and starts taking a stroll around the church. As a student of a military academy, he almost knows nothing about the outside world. He walks out of the church to see a bright and peaceful atmosphere with the nuns washing the clothes at the shower. Soon the nuns notice him lost in his thoughts, so they wish him good morning and tell him that they are mending his old clothes. Soon Nun Rosalie shows Tito his panty and tells him that she will wash it for him, but Tito quickly snatches his underwear from her, saying that he will wash it himself. While running, he gets knocked off by Frau, who mocks him, saying that he almost didn't notice him because he is so small. When Tito asks what a stupid bishop wants from him, he replies that he won't let Tito go anywhere unless he is well enough to handle his own shit. Tito thanks him for saving his life, but the bishop, in order to lighten up the mood, grabs Tito's panty and throws it in the air. Tito screams in embarrassment and lands in the water while catching his panty. Soon a water elf starts caressing him and he jumps out of the water in fear. Castor introduces her as Rosette, the church's organist. The elf really likes Tito and hugs him again. Castor asks Tito to look at the old man from last night who was having a good time with his family and the nuns are serving him well. When Tito asks Castor who is a Kor, he replies, when the Chief of Heaven grants humans life, they are allowed 3 wishes. The humans are asked to tell 3 dreams that they would like to achieve, and when the dreams are achieved, the soul returns to heaven again. But the Kor tries to interfere with one's dreams and draws them into darkness by taking their soul away. Therefore, it's the church's job to protect people from the Kor, but he asks Tito to keep everything that happened with him a secret. Before leaving, he asks what is Tito's dream, and the boy gets lost in Mikaj's thoughts. He always thought that he had no dream and he just had to follow the military path. But now his dream is to never abandon Mikaj because he always protected him. On the other hand, Mikaj thinks of the times when he and Tito used to have fun together. One day, when they were on their way to fishing, Shiru mocks Mikaj for being friends with a slave, and Tito, who couldn't take anyone insulting his friend, starts beating the shit out of him, but Mikaj stops him. He is always grateful for Tito, who always stood by his side. Suddenly, Ayanami visits him in the jail and tells him that his little sister has come to visit him. That bastard starts threatening Mikaj and asks if he will still choose Tito over his sister. Mikaj replies that his family will understand his intentions and they know that he will never betray a friend, so he's going to keep the oath he made to his best friend, who always protected him. The 3 bishops are keeping a close eye on Tito, and Fra is upset that a young boy like him is living a boring life and he should be reading porn instead. Labrador replies that they should give him some space because he needs some time. Suddenly, Rosette appears out of the water and asks him to go inside the chapel, and Tito does as he is told. After walking a short distance, Tito hears chants of prayers with all the bishops and nuns praying together. After seeing this, Tito starts getting flashbacks when his father gave him an Eye of the Michael, saying that one day he will inherit the legacy of Rags. He asked him to take responsibility for Rags and never let the Imperial Army take over them. Soon he walks out of the chapel with a silver rose, thinking that if he is an heir of Rags' kingdom, then he will be the enemy of the Barsburg Empire. The Imperial Army will never let a royal family member like him survive. He wonders if the people in the church already know that he is heir of the Rags' kingdom, and that is why they are protecting him. From the far end of the church, the three bishops are carefully observing his movements. Fra tells the other two that his sad Tito is such a pain in the ass, and Castor realizes that Fra cares for the little boy a lot. Labrador looks at the flowers and tells them that they are still aster, and that means someone very dangerous will soon come for Tito. After some time, when Tito is walking towards the church, a boy with a cape hugs him, and soon Tito realizes that he is his best friend Mikage. But Tito still can't believe his eyes and asks if he really is his friend, and Mikage holds him by the shoulders and reassures him that he really is Mikage, his best friend. On the other hand, when the three bishops look at the scene unfolding before them, Fra asks Labrador if Mikage is the dangerous person who will destroy Tito's world, but Labrador stays silent. Later, they take Mikage inside and learn from him that he escaped the Imperial army to look for Tito. Mikage replies that he and Tito are more than just friends, they are buddies for life. When Fra asks how he made it to 7th Division without much difficulty, he replies that it was not a big deal. Sensing that Tito is worried about his friend, Bishop Castor assures him that Mikage can stay here as long as he likes, but Tito wonders if it will be a good idea to endanger everyone's lives because of him. Seeing that Tito is overthinking again, Fra lightens up the mood by saying that after reuniting with his friend, Tito will cry like a baby again. Then he tells Tito not to worry because he will soon nurse his friend back to health, and then they can leave together. Then he goes on to give Mikage the magazine with nudes, and Mikage feels like he got another life, while Tito yells at him for being a pervert. After leaving Mikage and Tito alone to catch up with each other, the three bishops walk out of the room. Fra asks the other two if they are sure that he really is Mikage, because it's strange that the Imperial army freed him just like that. Moreover, they are still suspicious about the fact that Mikage found Tito so easily. Castor replies that Labrador's prophecies never go wrong and something bad is surely going to happen. Soon the Archbishop comes and asks Fra to not go messing around and prepare for the annual baptismal ceremony, and if he dares to embarrass the church, then he will surely be a dead meat. In the evening, Tito takes Mikage to a garden where they will be able to talk peacefully. Seeing Tito guiding him around, Mikage tells him that he is happy that his friend is doing well. Then Tito asks how did Mikage know that he was here, and Mikage replies that his crash landing made it easier for him to find him. Hearing this, Tito asks if he had a hard time. Mikage replies that it wasn't actually so bad. Ayanami interrogated him at first, but then he let him go. That Mikage tells him that he did a nice job running to this place where everyone is nice to him. Then Tito suddenly turns defensive and tells Mikage that he should stay away from Fra, the one who gave him porn to read. Moreover, he is not sure how a jerk like him became a bishop. Mikage replies that Fra seems like an elder brother to him, and he thinks that Tito and Fra look pretty good together. While they are talking, a pale boy suddenly appears from behind the bushes and asks if they like the flowers. They both look at him suspiciously, and suddenly the boy spreads his wings and Tito sees Core tattoo on his chest. He immediately comes in front of Mikage and asks him to run. He shoots the boy with his Zaphon, but the boy is pretty good with the Zaphon too, and he attacks Tito. Mikage tells him that he will not leave him alone, but Tito can't put his friend's life in danger and goes on to shield him while attacking the boy at the same time. Soon a rural fight begins between the two, but Tito is having a difficult time dealing with the boy. He climbs on top of the castle walls and starts chasing the boy with his Zaphon. He jumps on him and keeps shooting him with his Zaphon, but the boy soon disappears behind the church's towers. But soon Tegeto sees that the boy's wings shatter in the air and Fra is holding the unconscious boy in his arms. At night, Mikage is having a tough time sleeping, so Tito asks if it's because he told him that he is the heir of the Rags Kingdom. Mikage tells he believes him and jokes around saying that he always had an aura of royalty even when he was in the academy. Mikage asks him if he should tell this story too, and when Tito asks him to tell him everything, he tells him that when the Rags War ended, he was just 5 years old. When he asked his father why he was happy, he replied that they had killed a lot of enemies and defeated the Rags Kingdom. But as a kid, he used to wonder how can someone be happy after killing so many people, and now he knows that Tito's father and countrymen were killed. He then tells Tito that he is glad that he had a parent's love when he was a kid, and he is happy that he wasn't born alone into this world. Tito replies that he is really happy to meet him and he will learn more about the Kingdom of Rags and find answers to his questions. Mikage walks up to him and asks him to remember two things. First, he should not mess with the Imperial army, and second, revenge is never the answer because death and destruction will cause him more harm, so he should walk on the path of light and he will always support him. Tito looks at his friend in worry, asking why is he talking like he's going to say goodbye, but Mikage dismisses him, saying that nothing can tear them apart. It's Thanksgiving Day in the church, so the nuns take Mikage and Tito to explore the shops in the city. Labrador is selling medicinal flowers while Castor and Fra are selling dolls and meatballs respectively. Later, Mikaj tells Tato that he is enjoying here, but he will return to the Imperial Army and simply report to them that he wasn't here and everything will be fine. Soon the baptism ceremony begins and everyone gathers in front of the Archbishop, but Tato stops Fra, who is running towards the chapel, and asks him to take care of his friend Mikaj once he leaves, but Fra informs him that Mikaj is someone who looks for his own path. On the other hand, Mikaj sees a horse cart crashing into the walls of the church, and when he goes to check, he sees a girl with green hair who is also marked by the sign of the Corps. Mikaj quickly takes the girl on his back and runs towards the chapel to get her baptized, but suddenly she unleashes her Corps wings and captures him. Mikaj frees himself and runs away from her, but the girl keeps flying above him and the crowd starts scrambling in fear. Mikaj takes the Corps girl to a dark restricted area, and strangely the girl looks like her own sister, which puts him in a difficult situation. The girl unleashes her demons and asks Mikaj to not abandon her, and suddenly she attacks him, but Tato comes in time to save his friend. Castor's nun dolls try to save the boys, but she destroys them with her Corps wings. She goes on to tell the boys that she was always alone, her mom and dad always took care of her brother who was their heir. Saying this, she picks Mikaj in her arms, saying that she won't allow her brother to leave him. She attacks Tato with her spare wings and declares that she won't let him have her brother. It turns out that the Corps is sent by Ayanami to capture Tato, but as soon as she tries to kill Mikaj, Tato's Eye of Michael comes to life and a strange energy starts pulsating through the area. Soon Fra comes to the rescue and breaks Corps' wings with just one blow, leaving Ayanami wondering about his identity. After some time, Tato wakes up to see Ayanami with the girl in her lap, and soon Labrador tells the other two bishops that it's not Mikaj who will destroy Tato's world, but his arrival has set some destructive forces into action. The next morning, Mikaj goes to the bazaar and decides to leave this place as quickly as possible, and to protect his family, he would have to die. But soon Tato comes looking for him and asks him to follow him to the parade, and Mikaj decides to make one last memory with his friend. Soon it's time for the mass, and the crowd gathers to watch the parade with beautiful demonstrations, but Mikaj asks Tato to look at a sad boy standing under a tree. As soon as they both try to approach him, the boy runs away. Suddenly, they hear someone screaming, and when they look in that direction, they see a man chasing after the same boy they saw before. But Castor pulls a trick on him, and the fatty falls head over heels on the street, and when the bishop picks him up and asks what's wrong, he replies that a brat stole his bread away. Castor calmly replies that today is the last day for children to receive the blessings of God, so he should forgive him. On the other hand, Mikaj and Tita find the boy hiding behind a tent, and they give him bread to eat and take him to see the stage act of the nuns. There they learn that the boy's name is Tagio, his mother died, and his father went to find some work. Mikaj ruffles his hair and asks him to stop stealing and let the church take care of him. After the boy leaves to drink water, Mikaj tells Tato that he was just like Tagio when he first met him in the academy. After drinking water, Tagio sees the nuns putting on a play on stage. In the play, one of the nuns pretends to attack Sister Rosalie, but Tagio, being clueless, thinks it's real and jumps in to save Rosalie from the other nuns. The noise causes Mikaj and Tato to rush over. They quickly grab Tagio and say they'll take this unknown troublemaker away. After taking Tagio to a corner, Mikaj asks if he has never seen a play before, and before he can reply, a man calls out his name. Tagio runs towards the man and they both hug each other. Mikaj and Tito realize that the man is Tagio's father, but as soon as the man shakes Tito's hand to thank him, he feels a cold sensation creeping through his body. After the man leaves with his son, Tito tells Mikaj that the man's hands were really cold, and then he runs after him. Soon he sees the man dragging Tagio to a dark arena and declares that he will take his soul away. On seeing Tito, Tagio yells for help and Tito asks him to run away. Tagio bites the man's hand and escapes, but soon the man unleashes his powerful Corps wings and attacks Tagio. However, Tito shields him from the powerful attack. Suddenly, Tito's hand starts glowing with the Eye of Michael again, and the Corps can't attack him anymore. Before Tito can understand what's happening with him, Fra breaks off the man's wings, and soon Corps returns back to his true self. Soon, they all bid the father and son goodbye, and Mikaj is glad that he made some incredible memories with his best friend and promises himself that he will never betray Tato, even for his family. Fra tells the other two bishops that this time he felt someone watching him while he was helping Tato and sent chills down his spine. After the chaos settles, Tato and Mikaj are joking about girls in the garden, while the three bishops watch them from a distance. Suddenly, Mikaj grabs Tato's hands and Tato notices that his hands feel very cold. Surprised, Tato pulls his arm away. However, when he touches Mikaj's hand again, he senses that something isn't right. Mikaj brushes it off, saying he's just tired, and walks away. From the balcony, the bishops observe this exchange and realize something is wrong. Labrador tells the others that only half of Mikaj's soul is present in his body, while the other half is somewhere else. When Castor asks if they can save him, Labrador admits he isn't sure since they don't know where the missing half is. On the other hand, Mikaj runs to the garden with a severe headache. He realizes that he can no longer hold himself back and Ayanami is taking over his body. Suddenly, Tato runs towards him asking if he is doing alright, but Mikaj asks him to run away from him. When Tato refuses to do that, he asks him to kill him so he won't end up harming Tato. An anxious Tato asks what's wrong with him, and he replies that Ayanami did this to his body. He took half his soul and asked him to choose between Tato and his family. Soon Mikaj starts turning strange with something overpowering him, but before he falls in Ayanami's control, he tells Tato that he loves him. Soon he unleashes his Zaphon on Tato, but one of Castor's dolls comes in between, and as soon as it gets hit, Castor realizes that he has lost control of his doll in the West Tower. Hearing this, Fra immediately leaves the mask to save Tato. Tato is running away from his best friend Mikaj, but ends up trapped with him in a locked, isolated room. The possessed Mikaj attacks Tato using his Zaphon, but Tato keeps dodging. Suddenly, Mikaj transforms into a core, revealing dark wings and slams Tato head first onto the ground. He tells Tato there's no room for negotiation and crushes him underfoot. Tato falls from the tower but quickly rises, determined to save his friend. He tries to attack Mikaj's wings but misses. Mikaj seizes the opportunity to strike, sending Tato sliding across the ground. Mikaj grabs Tato by the neck, mocking him. He questions Tato's claim to be the king of Rags, saying that Rags never had a son. Tato begs for Mikaj's return, but Core insists that destroying his wings won't bring Mikaj back. Tato refuses to give up on his friend, shouting that he will never abandon him. However, the Core sneers, saying Tato will never reclaim Mikaj's soul because he betrayed the Imperial Army. When Tato asks why Mikaj doesn't kill him, the Core reveals that Chairman Miraku wants Tato alive. Suddenly, Mikaj triggers a trap on Tato's neck, causing Tato to fall off the bridge. Tato lands near a mysterious wall holding trapped souls. Desperate, he knocks on it, pleading for Mikaj's return. The wall breaks and a soul emerges, attaching itself to Tato. Meanwhile, Bishop Labrador informs everyone that Tato is about to awaken. Just as he says this, a tear from Mikaj falls into Mikhail's eye on Tato's back, and something deep inside Tato begins to awaken. On the other hand, Fra transforms into a ghost Grim Reaper, looking for the Mikaj and Tato, and he learns from a bunch of fairies that they both went to the Bridge of Trials. Tato leaps into the air and releases a powerful energy at Mikaj, demanding he remove the leash around his neck. Exhausted, Tato falls back and begs Mikaj to free him from the control he's under. However, Mikaj tightens golden strings around Tato's neck, choking him. Just as Mikaj is about to kill Tato, Frau intervenes and asks if Mikaj is the one who took Tato's friend away. Ayanami, controlling Mikaj's body, recognizes Frau as Sickle, a figure he faced long ago. Hearing the name Sickle, Tato remembers a nun once told him about one of the 7 gods, Sickle, who cuts away misfortune and appears when truly needed. Tato pleads with Fra to use his sickle to save Mikaj, but Fra refuses. If he uses the sickle, it would destroy Ayanami, but also kill Mikaj's soul. Knowing he cannot win against Sickle in this body, Ayanami retreats, vowing to return for Fra's sickle. Mikaj regains consciousness and Tato rushes to hug him, but Mikaj suddenly disappears into thin air. After this, Fra takes Tato to his room where he spends his days mourning for his best friend's death. He remembers the time Mikaj first brought food for him when he was just drinking milk and eating vitamin pills. He forced the mess lady to make porridge for Tato, and after eating that, Tato had tears in his eyes. He recalls the time when Mikaj asked him to walk on the path of light, but now his only light Mikaj is no more. After a few days, the nuns, Castor, and Labrador knock at the door of Tito's room, requesting him to eat something, otherwise he will starve to death. Suddenly, Fra comes running with trays full of food and a pink-colored animal, and he breaks open the door. When the nuns ask what that pink animal is, Castor replies that it's the church's version of animal-assisted therapy. Tato lashes out at Fra for not saving his friend, and then goes on to blame himself for not being able to save Mikaj. Fra assures him that it's not his fault because once the humans fulfill their 3 wishes, they return to the Chief of the Heavens. And Mikaj's 3rd dream must have been to protect his loved ones with his life, so all his 3 wishes were granted and he is able to return to heaven in peace. Fra informs him that Mikaj has returned to stand by his side again and points at the pink animal, saying that the animal's soul is the same color as Mikaj's soul. Castor adds that the animal is asking him to stop crying, and they will always stay together. Soon Tato starts smiling again, he drinks his tea and eats his food, while Fra resolves that he will make the man who played with Mikaj's soul pay with his life. Moreover, Ayanami recognized the sickle he uses, and he wonders if someone he knew from the past has awakened without their knowledge. Then Castor asks Taito why he is wearing a collar. He replies that Ayanami put it on him. Frau offers to remove it, but suddenly an eye emerges from it and bites his finger. Labrador explains that it's an oath collar which recognizes its master through blood. So now Taito and Frau would have to stay together for the next 48 hours, otherwise the collar will explode. They both look at each other with disgust, wondering how they end up together. The next day, they all go to the graveyard to pay respect to Mikage's soul, and Taito turns sad again, and after thinking for some time, he resolves to kill Ayanami. On the other hand, Ayanami tells Chief Muraku that pulled a trick move on him by keeping the Eye of Michael in the Empire without anyone knowing about his true identity. But now he is showing signs of awakening, and killing Taito and bringing the eye separately will be the best option. Muraku warns that he will regret killing the child, so Ayanami replies that he will kill Taito for the Empire. The next morning, Taito thanks Castor for providing him with everything, and then he tells him that he is leaving for Hoburg Fortress. But before leaving, Castor asks him if he has seen the Reaper named Sickle, so Taito replies that Sickle is Frau himself. Then Castor tells him that he has a similar scent, and then he goes on to magically put Taito to sleep and asks him to forget about the 7 ghosts. When he goes on to erase his memory, Frau stops him, saying that if he does that, the memory of Mikage will also get erased, and Castor will take away the last thing that matters to Taito. Castor informs Frau that the Imperial Army was searching for the missing Eye of the Michael, and they have assembled a number of children as vessels, and Taito is one of them. Then he reminds him that Taito's arrival has caused a lot of trouble in the church, but now they can't let him go, and then he asks Frau to stay away from the boy because if the higher-ups learn that he has not erased Taito's memory, then he will be stripped of his position and wouldn't be able to control Valoran's sickle. Moreover, if Taito learns that as the 7 ghosts their job is not eliminating Core and finds out about their true identity, then he will stop trusting them. Frau asks Castor to do whatever he wishes to, and then he starts walking away, but suddenly he senses something and he unleashes his sickle, only to realize that the eye in Taito's hand has woken up again. It attacks Castor, while Frau tries to save him with his weapon. The eye takes Taito's form and declares that under normal circumstances he would have normally killed them both, but his master Taito doesn't want that. The eye says that his master is one of the most beautiful vessels he had ever seen. Soon the eye activates itself, sends the ground rumbling beneath the bishop's feet, and rocks and stones start flying everywhere. But soon everything settles down, and the eye says that now he knows that the bishops are the 7 ghosts who have disguised themselves as normal humans. Then he runs towards Castor and asks him to remove the collar so he can access his full power. Castor replies that for that, he would have to give him to the Slave Bureau, and Taito wouldn't want that to happen. Then he whispers in Frau's ears that the collar responds to the commands of his master, and soon Frau hypnotizes Taito and puts him to sleep again. Castor tells Taito that the Imperial Army is looking for the Eye of the Michael because they want its power, and if the fate sent Taito to 7th Division, then he might actually turn into a guardian angel, but if the ancient prophecy is true, then he will turn into a dark force that will destroy the world. Soon Taito wakes up again, and as expected, he doesn't remember attacking the 2 bishops when the eye took over him. Then he starts walking out of the church to leave the 7th Division, and on his way he thanks everyone for keeping him safe. With Mikage's happy memories flashing in his mind, he starts climbing the stairs when Frau and Castor stop him and tell him that he is not in condition to leave 7th District, and if he does, then the Imperial Army will capture him and take him to the 1st Division. Hearing this, Taito replies that he needs to avenge his friend's death, so Frau asks if he is willing to throw away his life even after Mikage saved him by dying himself. Then he drags Taito inside the church, where Mikage's last words are written, and Taito finds out that his friend wants him to live a long life. Frau tells him that Taito is just trying to escape from the emotional mess he has become, and he must live through the pain to not give up, and Taito cries like a child after reading Mikage's heartfelt messages for him. Soon Taito starts living in the church, helping the nuns clean the hallways, climbing towers with Frau to help run the errands, and doing daily chores. Taito asks the bishops what's the point of staying alive if he can't repay Mikage, and he is just wasting time here. Castor happily tells him that he has found a way for him to take revenge, and for that, he would have to take the bishop exam, and if he manages to pass the exam, then he would have a pass to travel and live anywhere for free. He'll be allowed to pass through strict military checkpoints in the Barsburg Empire. He tells him that the exam is 1 month away, and he would have to prepare in advance to take revenge, and soon Taito agrees to take the exam. They take Taito to the library and bombard him with thick, big books. Frau informs him that the first stage is the written exam with 100 questions, covering 77 volumes with several hundred Bible chapters. Castor asks him to memorize this in 30 days, and Fra asks him how the hell will Tato do that when he took 3 years to learn that. So Castor replies that he is an idiot, that's why it took him 3 years to get that inside his head. But as soon as Tato opens the Bible volumes, he realizes that he has already read them before and asks Castor to test him. When Castor begins asking them questions, Fra's jaw drops on the floor when Tato narrates everything like he had mastered it. He tells them that the words pop in his mind like a lullaby, but he still needs to memorize a lot of stuff to pass the exam. After some time, Castor brings a weapon and tells Tato that the second level is a practical Zaphon test, in which he would have to show his Zaphon skills. He tells him that in this world there are many things that one can't protect simply by caring and praying, so bishops need to arm themselves to help the lost lambs who have wandered off after losing their dreams. Fra takes the weapon from Castor and tells Tato that the second exam is slaying cores and not everyone can use the weapon named Baculus. Tato is supposed to channel his Zaphon through this weapon to capture and destroy core. Tato takes the weapon and tells them that in the academy he learned how to channel energy through weapons, and soon he activated his Zaphon to try with Baculus, but he is not able to control it. A frustrated Tato asks if a kid like him can become a priest, so Fra replies that normally a person begins by first becoming a priest, but those who can use Zaphon at a young age are given special chance to directly become a bishop, specializing into fighting darkness. Castor adds that unlike the other bishops, he will be allowed to travel the world to fight minions of darkness. Tato thanks them and asks who made this special weapon, and they tell him it's someone known as a master craftsman who visits the church annually. Fra puts a badge on Tato, saying that you will be constantly under watch, so he should behave properly while under training. Later, Castor asks Fra how Tato is doing, and he replies that it's been 3 hours that Tato is practicing, but he has not made much progress. Castor walks towards Tato and shows him a doll in which he has trapped the wings of the core, and asks Tato to practice catching it. Soon the core doll starts running around Tato, and Fra is worried if a wimp like Tato can handle the doll. So Castor tells him that he has put a seal to limit its power, and then asks Fra that they should leave Tato alone. Suddenly the doll notices the nuns and starts doing strange things in front of them and soon attacks them, and Tato runs towards them, channeling the Zaphon in the weapon, and attacks the doll. The nuns run away and Tato waits for the doll to react, and soon the core wings emerge from his body and Tato stays frozen in fear. The doll starts running after Tato and keeps screaming for help, and suddenly the doll is trapped in flowers, and soon he notices that Labrador has come to help him. Later, Labrador takes Tato for a break and offers him some flower tea which tastes sweet to those who are hurt. Soon Tato starts crying and tells Labrador that he wishes to take revenge for Mikaj, but his friend told him not to do that. Labrador tells him that Mikaj has already forgiven him, and since he loved Tato, he didn't give him away to the Imperial Army. Hearing this, Tato realizes that Mikaj is the real treasure he received and wonders how to live a life that will make him happy, and soon the eye in his hand starts glowing. At night, while walking back to his room, Tato feels like he saw Mikaj, but when he puts his hand on the shoulder of the golden-haired boy, he realizes that it's not Mikaj, but another kid who is taking the bishop exam. The blondie mocks Tato, saying that he didn't know that they are even allowing kids to take a difficult exam, and Tato calls him a weasel and goes on to ask if he knows someone named Shuri from the Oak family, since he looks like the Shuri from the academy. Soon they both start bickering with each other, ready to beat the crap out of each other. The boy says that he is from the Oak family and he has come to find someone, and leaves. While following the blondie, Tato comes across a group of bishops assembled to see Archbishop Bastien capturing a core, and he sees the charming Archbishop treating a core girl with Zaphon without causing any pain to her. Soon he sees the 3 bishops and asks Castor how Bastien managed to do that, so he replies that Archbishop Bastien is a healing Zaphon expert. This Zaphon is not used to attack, but bind and remove a core without causing pain to the victim, and with talent and hard work, Tato will be able to master it too. So starting today, they will give him special lessons to train him as quickly as possible. Soon Tato finds the blondie and he asks if he is trying to become his friend, and Tato yells at him saying that he shouldn't get the wrong idea. At night, the nuns give Tato his room, and surprisingly, his roommate is the same blondie he met before. The nuns introduce him as Hacker and Oak, who came from the 1st District. They both immediately ask for a room change, but the nuns decline, saying that they should become buddies. Hackerin is studying while Tato is still grumbling about being roommates with him. Soon Hackerin asks Tato to join him, but he feels insecure because he still doesn't know how to use Baculus. The more he channels his energy, the more it rejects him. Suddenly, he notices that his Baculus has blood on it, and he realizes that it's the blood of previous candidates who worked hard to become bishops. They both walk towards an arena, and the guard asks them to sign at the gate's register before practicing. Soon they walk inside, but suddenly the guard collapses, so Hackerin and Tato carry him to the infirmary. Soon the news spreads about the guard Aldo's health, and Labrador tells Castor that something like this happened for the first time, and the flowers also look terrified. Meanwhile, Hakurin and Tato are running to the class because they are running late after dropping guard Aldo at the infirmary. On the way, Hakurin tells Tato that he is a good boy because he helped the guard before, and a shy Tato asks him to stop treating him like a kid. Soon they join the other candidates who are showing off their baculus to each other, and Tato realizes that only his baculus looks different from the rest. The nun takes them inside a water barrier where the cores are flying above them, and she asks them to be careful because the core can't leave the water, but they are still very real and can manipulate with their minds. Suddenly, Hakurin asks Tato to stand back and starts offensively and starts attacking the cores, and everyone looks in awe at his strength and accuracy. He tells Tato that he is not like him, and they both run completely different emotions, and soon Tato realizes that Zaphon takes the form of words and represents emotions, but his baculus is not responding to his words because it's not a tool for killing. Soon Tato pours an energy that will never let him lose anyone close to him, but it still doesn't work, and he hears the others laughing at him, but Hakurin asks him to keep trying. Soon Archbishop Bastien comes to him and asks him to focus on his desire to serve God and try again. Tato doesn't know what God is like, but if he is someone who can give him strength, then he will picture Mikkige, and just as he does that, a powerful energy emerges out of the baculus, and everyone stays frozen at their place. Soon Bastien notices that Tato is holding Frau's baculus, and Corin starts demanding how he is related to Frau. When Tato asks why he is asking about that perverted bishop, Hakurin smacks him across the face and tells him that Frau was the highest scorer on the exam's second stage, and dumb Tato is using his staff without even knowing it. Because of fighting with each other, Tato and Hakurin are thrown out of the practice arena, and soon they hear a few nuns screaming. When they run in that direction, they see guard Aldo murdered in cold blood. The crowd whispers that the 7 gods must have killed Aldo because he was a murderer, and soon Tato looks around to see a dark shadow. He recognizes it as Frau, but he looks so cold-hearted, looking at everything. At night, Tato sneaks out and looks at the glass painting of Mother Mary with a child, and suddenly he starts getting flashbacks of the time when his father took him to an unknown place. He told him that he's going to meet some important people and he should take care of them, and soon the flashback ends. He returns to his room, and Hakurin asks him if he was sneaking around in one of the nuns' rooms, and a panicky Tato denies the charges and asks him to shut his mouth. Then Hakurin jokes if he wishes to learn how to approach women from him, but Tato tells him that something else is bugging him. Hearing this, Hakurin tells him that they don't know each other well enough to share their deepest secrets. The next morning, while on his way to classes, Tato gets mobbed by nuns again who keep fangirling around him. He tells them that he is going to the library to find something, and they appreciate him for being so motivated to study and tells him that they are cheering for him. Tato enters the library to learn more about his past and the Eye of Michael. His father risked his life to give him the Eye of the Michael, but none of the books have any information. But suddenly, a book magically flips its pages and opens to the page that reads, Verloren, the legendary god of death who escaped to the surface after killing the chief of Heaven's daughter. Soon the words start revolving around him like the Zaphon, and Tato falls off the chair, and everyone looks at him like he has a nut or two loose. Suddenly, Frau and Hakurin come to him asking if he is doing fine, and he asks Frau what happened to Aldo last night. Realizing that he is standing next to Bishop Frau, Hakurin hands him a magazine full of nudes again. Frau is fascinated, but soon Bastien smacks him in the head and declares that he will dispose of these vulgar books and tells him that Castor is looking for him. When Tato asks him about Aldo again, he replies that he doesn't know what happened and the Imperial Guards are investigating the scene at the moment. Bastien says that the biopsy revealed that he died of shock following a blow from the back, and the bloody footsteps tell that the killer must have convinced Aldo to open the gate of the main entrance. But it's possible that it might be an insider job, but no one left the church that night. He assures Tato that whoever killed Aldo will be punished even if Aldo was a murderer, but all is in the hands of 7 ghosts sent by heaven who never forgive the evil. He assures him that they have doubled the security at church, and no one can enter the premises, and God will surely protect those who do good. Later, Castor tells Frau that the Pope has called for a meeting with him, and if Tato can't control his Zaphon and use the baculus, then he would not be allowed to leave the church. Suddenly, Frau opens the door, and they see Tato standing in front of it. He immediately apologizes to Frau for breaking his staff and runs off, leaving Frau wondering if he overheard them or not. Meanwhile, Tato goes berserk on learning that the 3 bishops already knew about the Eye of the Michael, and that's why they didn't allow him to leave. He recalls that he was an orphan and was raised by the church's father, who taught him to be kind, share with others, and help the needy. But soon the war broke out, and the King of Rags was killed, and the father who raised him told him to survive and not fall in the hands of the Imperial Empire. When Tato begs him to not leave, he assured him that when the time comes, he will remember everything. He told Taito that he loves him and blessed him with his power, and soon he was killed. Soon everything becomes clear to Taito, and he helplessly cries after knowing that Mikage and father both died because of him. When Hakurin sees him crying, he goes on to tell Bishop Fra. When Fra comes to Taito, he asks the bishop if he knew about the eye already, because Bishop Labrador was not surprised when he first saw the eye. Taito tells him that he is truly grateful for all his help, but he feels that he is trying to use him the way the Imperial military did. And soon he yells at him, asking if he is after the eye of Michael too, and leaps at him in anger. Fra asks if he really has time to judge others when he can't even protect himself, and soon he pins him down. Taito begs Fra to kill him, but he denies, saying that it's his job to protect him, but he can't always be on his side. So he wishes to make him strong enough to stand alone. Taito realizes that Fra is speaking exactly like his dead father, and Fra tells him that it's the Eye of Hope that the father entrusted him with, so he should protect it. Suddenly, Taito realizes that Fra mentioned his father and then forces him to tell how he knows about father, so Fra tells him that he will find soon. Bishop Castor tells Fra and Labrador that he felt a strange presence amongst this year's candidate, and he is afraid that something dangerous is lurking around in the church. Labrador replies that he can't differentiate between the ugly and the beautiful until they both have blossomed, so there is a chance that someone out of this year's bishop candidates will turn out to be the evil one. Fra casually tells them to not get their panties in a twist because he will deal with the evil one when the right time comes, so for now they should let the candidates prepare for the exam. At night, Taito is waiting for Castor's special training, and soon he arrives. He tells him that tonight they will work on mental strength because he keeps on breaking the baculus, and that means that his Zephon is of an explosive nature. He tells him that to use the baculus effectively, they need to maintain their energy levels. Taito wonders if this is because he is trained to kill as many enemies as quickly as possible while he was in the academy. So Castor asks him to run around the church, and his core dolls will follow him so he doesn't slack. Moreover, he would have to run on the Zephon track which he has created, but he would have to make a shield from his own Zephon, so he won't end up flying across the sky. Soon Taito starts running with the nasty dolls following him like chickens, and now they are attacking him from everywhere. But both Castor and Taito don't know that someone from Ayanami's gang is keeping a close eye on them. After the training, an almost dead Taito drops on his bed and soon starts changing into his night clothes. That's when Hakurin sees the battle slave mark on his back and wonders if that's the reason why his Zephon is very strong. Hakurin tells him that he had a hard time taking care of his pink friend while he was gone, and Taito replies that he is the reincarnation of his friend Mikage, and it's because of him that he is taking the exam. When Taito asks Hakurin why he is taking the exam, he replies that one day his mother was possessed by a core, but his father refused to take any help from the bishop, fearing that the Oak family will be shamed. He locked his mother in a room, and one day Fra magically appeared before them and healed his mother. But before he could thank him, he disappeared, and now he wants to take this exam despite being from the military family because he doesn't wish to follow his father, and he also wants to thank Bishop Fra for being his savior. Hearing this, Taito tells him that he's a brave person for choosing a path of his own, and soon they both say their goodnights to go back to sleep. The next night, Taito finally manages to win against the core dolls, and Castor gives him a professional baculus and asks him to test it on the core dolls. Soon Taito unleashes his Zephon, channels it inside the baculus, and attacks the doll, killing many, and he realizes that it's the first time he is able to pull off something like this. Castor knows that Taito will find it a bit difficult to use the new baculus, but this will help him control his excessive force. Soon Castor realizes that Hakurin is watching them from behind the wall, and he asks him to join in too if he wants to. After the training, while they are on their way to the room, a portal opens up from behind them and a dark energy emerges out of it. Taito's eye senses the energy, but before he can do anything, Hakurin takes the attack on his weapon, and the force sends him flying out of the window. Taito quickly extends his hand to him while balancing himself with his baculus, but the dark energy breaks it. However, luckily Fra comes in time and saves the two from crashing down the church's tower. He unleashes his scythe and attacks the shadow, breaking it into several pieces, each surrounding him from all sides. On the other hand, Ayanami's two minions find out that Fra is the real sickle. When Taito asks what the hell is happening, Fra replies that the shadow is Wars, a human whose 3 wishes have been granted by a core, and soon the shadow disappears and they all see a lifeless Aldo in its place. Soon Fra notices one of Ayanami's minions. He tries to attack him, but he escapes. At the meeting with the Archbishop about the Wars issue, chaos erupts as everyone wonders how a Wars feel. The evil dark shadow can enter the church when there has been no black magic. Meanwhile, Castor thinks to himself that it might be because of the Eye of Michael that everyone is after, and only the 3 bishops and Archbishop knows about that. The next morning, Taito and Hakurin wake up together since they retreated after last night's incident. Tigo defensively asks Hakurin to stay away from him because the Shadow is after him, and he almost got killed last night while protecting him, and if Frau wouldn't have saved them, he would have been in the coffin right now. Hakurin tells him that he was the one who risked his life to save him, and since he is a bishop, he will never run away from saving someone from darkness. Soon, Frau emerges from the coffin, and Tito asks if the war last night seemed familiar, and Frau replies that the core last night must have taken the human soul and body, and all of this is happening because the dark forces are trying to lay the foundation for Valoran's resurrection by filling the world with darkness. Later, Tito realizes that he was a helpless wimp before, but slowly he is becoming stronger. So he tells Hakurin that once he will become strong enough to protect him, he will become his friend. Soon they come across the nuns who praise Tito for working hard, and he tells them that he still doesn't understand a lot of things, but he won't go anywhere by suspecting others, so he's going to work hard. After reaching the library, both Tito and Hakurin are busy finding books when a shady bishop, one of the minions of Ayanami, approaches him, but Castor stops him midway, asking what he wants. The bishop throws a metal badge at Tito and tells him that the owner of the badge, named Fiacruz, has asked him to deliver the message to Tito, and soon he starts walking towards him in a threatening way. Castor immediately binds him with his silver threads and throws him across the library, but the possessed bishop still keeps on blabbering that the church is not on Tito's side, but Castor quickly finishes him. After the chaos ends, when Hakurin asks who Fiacruz is, Tito replies that the name sounds familiar, but he can't remember who that person is. Soon Frau comes running to him, asking worriedly if Castor is doing well or not. But suddenly, Tito looks at Frau with accusing eyes and tells him that the person before told him that the church is not on his side, and Frau disappointingly asks if he is back to suspecting everyone again. Then he tells Tito that only he can decide if the bishops are his friends or not, and then he walks away. Soon the other two bishops join him, saying that he is right because Tito alone can make the decision, and Labrador adds that right now Tito is trembling in pain. Later, Hakurin asks Tito to stop worrying if the church is on his side or not, because no matter what happens, he will always be on his side. Then the bishops go on to meet the archbishop and tell him everything that happened in the library. Castor tells him that the bishop who approached Tito only had half soul, and the archbishop replies that they have done well to protect the seal of Verloren every time the minions of darkness attempted to free him. In this world, only 7 gods can manipulate souls, but Labrador replies that the wheels of fate have begun to spin out of control. After 1,000 years, Valoran's body continues to sleep beneath the Eye of Michael's seal, but even if the servants of darkness are targeting Tycho and the Eye of Michael, the seal on his body remains, and that means heaven has guided their last hope for altering Tito's fate. Castor adds that Tito is afraid to trust anyone because he has lost everything, but he holds the key to change his fate. On the other hand, Frau is playing with the kids when he feels a strange sensation coming from inside the chambers of the church. He runs towards that direction and sees traces of darkness everywhere. He sprints in anger because the strange, eerie sensation is not leaving him, and he is not able to find the source of the darkness too. Suddenly, he opens the doors of the dark chamber, and he finds Ayanami's minion. He runs towards the pink-hair minion, but he throws a core-infused body towards Frau. The minion throws a dark Zephon towards Frau, and soon the lifeless bodies on the wall start coming back to life, ready to attack Frau. Soon Frau unleashes his sickle and attacks the zombies, brutally cutting them in halves. Then he asks the pink-haired if he is the Warsfiel, who is after Tito, and leaps at him, but he disappears in darkness again. Frau runs to help the injured man and takes out the blade, but soon the guards enter the chamber and accuse him for injuring the man because he is holding the Warsfiel weapon. They insult him, asking him to put his hands behind his head, and soon he is captured. Archbishop Bastian asks the guard to leave Frau because he would never harm a person, but they didn't listen to him and take Frau away. On the other hand, Labrador learns from the flowers that Frau has been arrested on the suspicion of murdering the criminals, and he tells Castor about it. He explains that Frau was fighting the minion of darkness to protect Tito, but it turned out to be a trap for Frau. Soon Tito comes running to them saying that he really wants to trust them, but he is having a hard time doing that. Castor asks him to follow them and takes him to a room of confronting one's own soul. Labrador asks him to look inside his soul as soon as the mist disperses, and then they leave. Tito asks the mist if he should trust the church and Frau, and suddenly a voice erupts, saying that he should trust them and trust whatever he finds here. As soon as Tito looks closely, he sees the image of Father in front of him. He says that he will release another seal on Tito's memory so he can uncover more of his memories, and soon Tito remembers that the Father's name is Freya Cruz. Tito realizes that Freya Cruz is the father who raised him in this church, and he comes out of the room and tells the bishop that he got to know everything, he belongs in this church. The bishops break the news to him that Freya Cruz was a bishop who was excommunicated long ago. When Tato asks why they would do that to a priest, Castor tells him that his father stole the Pandora box from the church to escape to the Rags Kingdom. It was a box in which the body of the evil god of death and Valorant slept, and as a result, the Rags War broke out. Once the Pandora box was opened, the Imperial army invaded his father's kingdom and destroyed it, but they are still not sure how the war actually began. The Barsburg Empire believed that the Rags Kingdom used Bishop Cruz to steal the Pandora box, because with both eyes they would have revived the Valorant and conquer the world. Thus, in the name of justice, Rags was destroyed. However, some say that the Barsburg Empire made up the whole story and used this incident to accuse the Rags Kingdom of plotting a conquest. So the truth lies in the darkness. When Tato asks why would father do that, Castor replies that only Bishop Cruz knows the truth, so he must find his own truth without believing in other versions of the story. Castor tells Tato that he is the kingdom's last hope, so he must not fall in the hands of the Empire. Tato declares that father saved him and he had a reason to steal the Pandora box too. Moreover, he believes that his father had a reason to protect the Eye of Michael, so he will become a bishop and find the truth. Soon the flowers tell Labrador that Fra has been sentenced to death, and Tato is shocked to hear this, so Castor tells him that Fra has been confined in the Dungeon of Light for using Warsfield. On the other hand, Basting tells the Archbishop that the criminal who survived the attack is too weak for questioning, but Frau has been confirmed to have been holding the weapon of the Warsfield. But when the bishops come in direct contact with the Warsfield, the darkness devours their bodies, and only those who have sold their souls to darkness and their offsprings can touch such objects unprotected. So he asks the Archbishop when was Fra tainted. He asks him to tell a way to save him, but the Archbishop tells him that Fra doesn't wish to be saved. He can no longer use the baculus, and he has given up living as a normal bishop. The Pope has forbidden him from revealing the exact reason, but he tells Bastian that the church is protected by a barrier and the strongest Warsfield are powerless before it. So the barrier is most probably broken by those who are able to use baculus, and in order to make it appear that Fra has used Warsfield, a different member of the church must have broken the barrier. That means there is a traitor in the church. Tito hurried through the canals, desperate to save Fra, who had always been there for him. He couldn't understand why Fra was sentenced to death and felt he didn't deserve such a fate. Determined to help, Tito sought Rosette's assistance, and she guided him through the water-filled passages leading to the Dungeon of Light where Fra was imprisoned. As they swam, Tito's mind raced with questions about Fra's situation. The pressure of the water and his frantic thoughts began to overwhelm him, making it harder to breathe. Sensing his struggle, Rosette helped him regain his strength, urging him to continue. They pressed forward, moving deeper into the maze of canals until Rosette pointed toward the location where Fra was being held. Reaching the dungeon, Tito immediately tried to break through the wall using his Zaphon. However, despite his repeated attempts, the barrier wouldn't yield. Frustration and worry gnawed at him as he wondered what he could do. Suddenly, he sensed Frau's Zaphon reaching out to him. Through it, Frau sent a message urging Tito to leave. He claimed this was his battle to face and that Tito should focus on his own problems. Tito was stunned. He couldn't understand how Frau could ask him to leave, especially now when his life was in danger. Frau's words echoed in his mind, but Tito refused to abandon him. He pushed himself harder, his determination unshaken despite the obstacles. His Zaphon kept striking the wall, trying to find a way through. He felt a mix of anger and sadness at Frau's insistence on handling this alone, but his resolve to help didn't waver. Frau eventually expressed gratitude for Tito's efforts, but explained that escaping would only confirm suspicions against him. If he ran, it would mark him as a traitor, and he couldn't let that happen. He asked Tito to leave without him and trust that he would find a way out on his own. Reluctantly, Tito realized that Frau's request came from a place of care and selflessness, even though it frustrated him. Before Tito could argue further, Frau offered him Volume 3, Chapter 17 of the Bible, a gesture that left Tito momentarily confused. The gift carried a quiet message of faith and encouragement. Frau wished Tito good luck for his future challenges, urging him to persevere. His charm and confidence shone through even in such dire circumstances. Tito felt a surge of emotion but refused to give up entirely. He promised himself that this wouldn't be the last time he would see Frau. Though he had no choice but to leave for now, he silently vowed to return and rescue him, no matter what it took. With one last glance, Tito swam away, carrying both hope and determination in his heart. On his way back, Tito recalls how Mekaj used to tell him that he never smiles. So when he asked him how to do that, Mekaj replies that he has to loosen up his facial muscles and he will grow taller if he smiles often. So he immediately turns back and gives a forced smile to Frau, and he smiles back at him. Tito comes out of the canal promising to himself that he will never let someone close to him die again. Soon Hakarin gives him a towel and reminds him that they had promised to do everything in pairs, but Tito ran alone. He looks in Tito's eyes and tells him that the look in his eyes have changed, and that means he has started to trust the church again. Hacker tells him that he will work together with him to find who falsely framed their beloved Bishop Frau, and soon they both join hands to work together.